Kirk Enterprise, Mr. Scott.
Gamers, this is Captain Kirk for XBPSA, and today we're going to take a look at Game Pass, but what games should you really be playing? We ask the community. Let's do it. Boom! There is over 100 games available for you to download and play on Game Pass. But just which one is going to be right for you? I mean, which game is really going to be speaking to your type of gaming style? Don't you worry, we asked some of the gamers of XBPSA to let us know which games they enjoy and why. First up, let's talk Shadow of War, baby. Boom! The game launched under a cloud of backlash as the company followed the 2017 stream of monetization. Being a single-player game, Monolith was forced to double back on many areas, all of which ended up making the game better and allowing many of the original naysayers to change tune. SOW was better off because of it. So let's take a little bit of a look at the game's length, right? I mean, it's an open-world game, so what can you expect? Before the large update, SOW was an extremely long game, and many felt the end game, which involves invading several fortresses multiple times, dubbed the Shadow Wars, was deliberately extended and designed to bait you into topping off with some MTX. Microtransactions. Oh, I hate you, microtransactions. There was, however, a massive update done which resulted in a more streamlined Shadow Wars section. This reduction makes the game's main story length around 30 to 40 hours, and there is still plenty to do past the endgame. I really want to take a little bit of time and tell you guys about the Nemesis system and why I think in Shadow of War it is a feature that should be used more. Let's do it. So, to sum up the Nemesis system, if an enemy drops you, he is rewarded with a promotion in the army, it'll become stronger, gain more followers, and increase in reputation. I want you to think about this, right? The game makes your death more involved. It's not just you losing your loot or losing XP. The world adapts to your death in SOW, and it's not like other games where it's just, you lose some XP or maybe some of your loot. The world is vastly more involved, and having this track to a specific NPC or NPCs really gives your death a lot more meaning, and I think this is a fantastic feature. Just 2 quick points about SOW, and I think it is totally worth the look-see. Of course, that's just, if you want, but I think you should. Okay. It's not an ultra-realistic hospital simulator, right? There are lots of dry humor sprinkled throughout regarding staff, diseases, and more. For instance, patients with lightheadedness has a light bulb as their head, and the treatment requires a machine that unscrews this light bulb and replaces it with a real head. A pandemic is simply someone with a pan. Yes, a frying pan stuck on their head. And you guessed right, the treatment involves pulling the pan out of the patient's head. Face off. Ridiculous, sure, but it's funny. Not to mention, all the characters in the game look like someone from the British animation comedy Gromit and Wallace. While the graphics are not AAA level, the cartoonish looks fits the theme of the game so well. To start a hospital, you need to find land. And if you do not have enough money, you take a loan. From here, the game is about management. Manage your available building space, finances, staff complement, and customer satisfaction. Customer satisfaction will greatly influence your creativity, not just in managing the available space, but also ensuring that the spaces used are enjoyable for customers. Customers, not patients, because, ching! You have to have sufficient lighting, temperature mitigations like air cons and heaters, and supply sufficient drink and food dispensaries. Make sure there are enough toilets and trash cans, but also ensure that there are sufficient staff to deal with both. The game gives you specific objectives to reach for each hospital built, and that will allow you to go to new maps, which in turn will allow you to learn new diagnostic tools or systems that will heal your patients and get them back on the streets again. Back on the streets, not like night walkers back on the street, just the game doesn't really tell you what happens to them after they leave the hospital, so, that's all I'm saying. 2 Point Hospital is fun. It's that game that you sit on the couch, you had a long day, you just want some mindless entertainment, but with a twist. 2 Point Hospital. It's the game. That's it. Go. Ding, ding, ding. Download. Go. You thank us later. Pillars of Eternity is a fantasy role-play game, but there's a great backstory, so let's do it. I say interesting story because not too long ago, Obsidian Entertainment looked like it was going to go under. Until that is, they began a Kickstarter. It ended up being the 10th most successful campaign on the It became the 10th most successful campaign on the crowdsourcing site ever. Ever? So just exactly what made people pay for something that didn't really have a name, and there wasn't really a lot of detail at the time. The short answer is because Baldur's Gate was a landmark in gaming, and the people at Obsidian were largely responsible for it, the company having been born from the ashes of Baldur's Gate developers Blackout Studios. So yes, each dollar contributed at this time was a gamble, but a gamble that paid off immensely, because Pillars of Eternity is seriously good. And we mean like seriously good. If you usually get stuck for an hour on a character creation screen, you're going to get stuck here even more. Each race has sub-races, and each sub-race has got specialities, and so on the list goes. The game tries to build an expansive world, but doesn't try and make it too much. There's enough stuff in the game, and getting it right is one of the reasons I reckon the game has such a passionate following. Now the script. The script is good. The story feels real, and you are sucked in by this at first. The writing is incredibly descriptive, so there's not a lot of reason for your brain or imagination to fill in a lot of gaps. The game tries to build an expansive world, but doesn't try and make it too much. There's enough stuff in the game, and getting it right is one of the reasons I reckon the game has such a massive, passionate following. RPG fans, Pillar of Eternity, this is your game. Next one, let's do it. I don't really think I need to tell you anything about these games, so, here's some gameplay. I kid you guys. Of course I'm going to tell you a little bit more about it. Ori 1, or rather, Ori and the Dark Forest, was a huge success as a 2D platformer, launching with stellar reviews from Steam, doing it a 10 out of 10, and Metacritic scoring it a 90%. So when you actually do hit the big time with a game, you're gonna want to expand on that, right? Next must be bigger, my friend. Bigger, much bigger. Moon Studios went ahead and got a hold of this guy right here. Jeremy Gritton. And if you scroll down a little bit, you see that Gritton was the senior cinematics artist for Blizzard and StarCraft 2 and Diablo 3. Who remember those cutscenes in Diablo 3, right? I mean, they were good. Well, Moon brought this guy in as their new art director, and Moon Studios went from making an all-time classic game and one-upped themselves. How many times does this happen in an entertainment genre? I mean, we expect the games to look better, right? But just exactly what did you have to do to go from Blind Forest to Will of the Wisps? You're gonna have to do quite a big job to get praises from people like Brandon Terrell when he was saying, and I quote from his IGN Africa article, "It was always hard to find anything bad to say about 2015's Ori and the Blind Forest. Moon Studios' blend of entrancing, tragic fairy tale world and white-knuckle platforming challenge left a mark that hasn't faded with time. And yet the new follow-up, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, successfully builds on that distinctive gameplay in a way that doesn't just retread the same ground. There's more breadth, detail, choice, and diversity than ever, and it's all done with engrossing color and light of an excellent and inspiring game. Well, there you go. That's 4 games. 4 games which you can go right now and download with your Game Pass substitution and you can get all this from your Game Pass subscription. It's pretty easy and is ready for you right now. Thank you again to the gamers that gave us some ideas for this episode. Please make sure in the comments to let us know which Game Pass games you think other people will also enjoy. We can't wait to hear from you, and this is Captain Kirk for Xbox Players SA. Happy gaming, y'all!